What is up guys, Cruise Designs here, and I've got another tutorial for you today. Now this is kind of like an update video, update tutorial to my realistic 3D text into an image. If you go back, it's suddenly become quite a popular video. It's got over 10,000 views, so I thought I'd do a sort of remake with a bit more detail, and instead of just text we would incorporate a car like this. So obviously the car wasn't there beforehand, and then we've got the reflections from the scenery, and also color correction and lens flare. So I thought I'd do a tutorial on this whole image here, and even if you don't really want a car in a scene, the things that I show you, the skills that I show you, can be used for anything really. So you're going to need, we're going to go back to this image, just search in Google Images long road, and this will come up. So this is a really good image to use for it, and you need something with a big flat surface really, and that works best. And I'm going to try and move quickly because my realistic 3D text video was quite long. This is going to be even longer, so I'm going to move quickly. So the first thing we're going to do is get everything set up in Cinema 4D first, I think, and we're going to change our render settings in the output to 1280 by 720, and then just leave that. Now you need to come to the Lights tab and grab a background, and then double click down here to make a new material, and open the material, and in the Color tab, drop down the texture and go click on the little arrow next to texture and go load image, and then find long road, which is here. Click yes, and then come out of that, and then drag it on to your background, and there we get the long road. So now we need to create a plane for the car to sit on. So I'm going to grab a plane, and you basically want to line it up with your flat surface. So in this case it's a road. So I'm going to rotate mine like so and enlarge it. I need to rotate it a bit more like that, and then pull it down so it's more in line with the road. Then I can enlarge it a bit more, and if you click on, you'll see that here the black arrow with the orange triangle is selected. If you click on just the orange arrows, you can just adjust single sides of it, so you might want it longer than it is wide. You might want it, yeah. So I'm going to leave it like that. Okay, and now we need to make the plane invisible, because if we render it, it's covering up the image. So come back to your long road material and drop it on to the plane, and now you need to select projection frontal, and if we now render it, you can see the image through it, but there's still a shadow. It's slightly darker. So to fix this, go to plane, right click, go Cinema 4D tags, click compositing, and tick the box compositing background. And now if we render it, there isn't anything there, and you'll see on the sides where the plane overlaps, there's an overlap of the image, but this doesn't matter, it won't show up in the render. So we've got our plane blended in well, and now we need our car. Now I went to Turbo Squid, just search Google Turbo Squid. They do 3D models. There's loads of free ones, and I found this, let me just find it. I found this 3D model of a Nissan 350Z. And before you do anything, actually I should have done it before I before I merged in this the Nissan. Go to the Lights tab and click Camera, and that will place a camera, and you'll see if I delete these, my camera is here. If I move about and mess up the scene, you can just tick, just click in the little black box, and it'll turn white, and you'll go back to your camera. But then if if you want to move around the scene, then make sure you untick it, make sure it's black, and then you can move around again. So I'm going to tick it and then reinsert the Nissan. And mine's got a background with it called null object. We're just going to delete that because we only want the Nissan. And now I'm going to come out of the camera, and because it's quite a complicated model, it may slow down your computer. So here's my camera, the green lines. We're going to scale down the Nissan. Make sure you've got your black arrows with the orange triangle selected. Scale that right down, and then rotate it a bit. Then you might want to go back into your camera, and there you can line things up better. And now it's just a case of lining the Nissan up on the road. This is the first lining up step we need to do, and I'll come back when I've lined it up properly. Be back in a second. Okay, I've lined the car up with the road, so it looks like it's sitting on the road now. However, if we come out of camera view, you'll see that the car isn't sitting on the plane. Now to fix this, we're actually going to move the plane, not the car. And you don't need to touch the car now. Once it's lined up in the position you want it, like this, you just need to mess around with the plane. So obviously we need to drag it up. And now if you come under, you'll be able to see where the car pokes through. We're going to need to rotate it slightly like that, and then drag it down and just try to make it equal. Yeah, that's almost perfect. Let's have a look, and that should be good. The car should be just about sitting on the plane perfectly, and that's really good. It's just about playing around with it and trying to get it perfect. So now if we go back into camera view, the car's sitting on the plane nicely, and it's all lined up. Now you want to now we need to hop into Photoshop before we do anything else, and you want to firstly open your long road image. Where is it? There we go, long road ahead. And now we need to create a HDRI, or a sort of HDRI image to go in the sky to give it those reflections. Now I'm not experienced at doing this. I'm not 100% sure if this is the exact correct way. This is just how I've figured out how to do it, and it works pretty well. So we're going to create a new and make it 10,000 by 5,000, and then drag your long road image onto it, and you'll see it's really small. This really doesn't matter because we're actually going to be blurring the image. So just line it up in the corner and then hit Control T, and then you can drag it out and just make it roughly the size of this canvas. Hit enter, and it would have lost quite a lot of resolution, as you can see, but that doesn't matter because we're now going to go Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and I blur mine around 25. 25 is good. It all depends on the image you've got, I guess, but for this 25 is good. Click OK, and it might take a little while because it's such a big canvas, and then go Save As. I'm going to save it as a JPEG and save it as HDRI. It's not really a HDRI image, but it's kind of acting as one. So we're going to save it. Sorry about my cough. And then quality maximum, format options baseline standard, and then click OK. Wait for it to save, and there we go. Now we've got our HDRI. We can jump back into Cinema 4D, insert a sky, and then you'll see you might have a lot of materials for the car. Make a new material, and then set untick color but tick luminance. So in the luminance tab now, go to the texture, drop down the little arrow, load image, and find your HDRI. Here it is. grab that in, click yes, and there we go. We've got our HDRI, and you'll see it's slightly blurry, and then just drag that onto your sky. And we don't want to see the sky, obviously it's messing up the image now, so right click, just a minute, sorry about that. So we've got our sky and the image, but it's cutting stuff out, so we're going to right click and go Cinema 4D tags again, click compositing again, and this time we're going to untick scene by camera, and there we go. So we've still got the sky, but you just can't see it basically. And then one of the last steps is to come to your render settings, go Effect, Global Illumination, set GI mode to IR plus QMC still image, diffuse depth to gamma 2, and then also Effect and Ambient Occlusion. So apply Global Illumination and Ambient Occlusion, and now we can render this out and see what it looks like. So I'm going to render it and I'll be back in a second. Okay, so it's finished rendering and this is what we've got. It looks pretty realistic. You can do this with any model as well, any 3D object. You can incorporate it into a scene in this way. I've just chosen a car, and now that we know everything's all lined up and good, and we've got some shadowing under here, I'm going to render it out and then I'll see you in Photoshop in a second. Actually, one thing I forgot is render settings. So before we go into Photoshop, we're just going to set render settings. We need to obviously put the file somewhere, like here, call it render, save it as a PNG and tick alpha channel, and then best for anti-aliasing, and that's pretty much all good. So yeah, I'll see you in Photoshop. All we've got to do is render it, and click and hold here, go to render to picture view, and click OK if there's any texture errors, and I'll see you in Photoshop. Okay guys, so it's finished rendering. We've got our image, and now it's we just need Photoshop. So I'm going to open it here, render. Nope. Just a minute, 2 seconds. Okay, basically I pretty majorly screwed up. Hopefully you weren't following this tutorial exactly, but pretty much do not tick alpha channel. Earlier I told you that you do need to check alpha channel, and that's just because I'm used to doing it for text and stuff, but do not tick alpha channel. Hopefully you weren't following the tutorial exactly, so you haven't waited for a really long render that's not actually what you want. But I've re-rendered, and this is what you should have. So the car, we've got some shadow under it, and also these reflections that are the same colour as the surrounding, and also you'll see reflection like around here. You can see the scenery, and there's the tarmac, or you can see the road reflected. So now we're going to colour correct it. Now this isn't too hard. Control J to duplicate it. I always do that. You always want the original at the bottom. And then we're simply going to add some more shadowing. So come to the quick selection tool and make it nice and big, and then just try and outline this right hand side of the car. Just try and outline that nicely, and then you can come to the minus brush tool to zoom in to get rid of edges. And this can take a little while to get exact. I mean, it doesn't have to be completely perfect. Just gonna go touch that in, and then a little bit of the wheel, and that should be just about good. Okay, I'm going to leave mine like that. You can do it more precise, obviously. So now you want to right click and go layer via copy, and that will copy the layer, and then make a layer underneath it. So you've got, if we hide the very bottom, you've got the original and the separated one, and then a layer in between. In the layer in between, we're going to grab a soft brush with black, and then simply put a bit of shadow underneath the car like that, and then filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and then give that a bit of blur, and then lower the opacity. And you won't have this rough edge here if you've done the selection a bit better. There's a bit of a rough edge, but so now we've got some more shadowing. Now we want to put some gradient maps on, so we're going to go click on the very top layer, which is the cutout bit, and go layer, new adjustment layer, gradient map. Click OK, and we're just going to use a black to white one at first, and then set that blending mode to soft light. And basically what we're doing now is just making the colours of the background and the car, we're trying to match the colours together and kind of blend it in a bit better. I'm going to lower the opacity of that a bit actually, and then you can lower the opacity of the gradient map. I'm going to put mine on 6, well, about 50, and then make another gradient map and choose whatever colour you want really. Purple to orange works really nicely with a lot of things, so I'm going to use that. Set it to soft light, then lower the opacity of that right down. As you can see, we're starting to get similar colours in the background and the car. And now we're going to create a new layer and fill it with black. Go filter, render, lens flare. Drag the lens flare to one of the corners. I like to drag it up to this corner and make it a 105mm prime. Click OK, and we get a lens flare, and then set that to screen. And then I like to duplicate it, Control J, and then lower the opacity of the top one to about 50. So you've got a full opacity one and a 50 opacity. And now we just want to try and match the lighting with the car. So we're going to come just under the gradient maps, make a layer directly under the gradient maps, come to your brush, make it reasonably big, about that big, set the opacity of this layer right down to about 10%, and then just fill in black where the darker parts would be. So the back of the car here, obviously this light which is acting as the sun isn't going to be shining back here, so we're going to shade this in black a bit, and then switch to white, and you can lighten up the top of the car. You can always make that a little more visible, and that's pretty much it. That is the tutorial. So we've got the car is starting to look, it really looks like it's in the scene more now. We've got lighting, color corrected it, we've got these nice reflections from the surroundings and the reflections of the road, and that's pretty much the tutorial. So this is kind of like a part 2 to the realistic text into 3D image, no, 3D text into image, and I hope this tutorial was helpful. Thank you for watching. I'll have more videos on the way. This is Cruz Designs, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.